Welcome to the Modern Firm Podcast. John Mitchell, Darren Root back with you.
Hey, John, how are you today?
I'm good. Good lunch. I think I got all of the hunger out of the way, and I'm ready to chat.
I think we went straight from breakfast into lunch today.
We did. Usually we at least take a break. I went straight from a muffin to a tamale.
Oof.
Now just water for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Until 5.
That's right. Well, we're glad you're back with us today. Darren, this just feels like an extension of our morning. And most of the conversations we have around just how we think about firms and how we think about what's going on inside, especially small firms. What does it look like to manage your firm? And you know, this SMART series that we've been talking about for a while, we've got bogged down in the word smart, but really we just mean intentional.
Yeah.
Be intentional with this stuff. And we're going to hit today one that's actually really near and dear to our hearts lately. And I'm afraid this might be a 2 or 3 parter at some point. We'll probably dig into this later too, because there's no way we'll cover it all in one pod. But the idea of smart firm management, the idea of what you may think of as practice management, what you may think of as just taking care of your firm. We want to put some parameters on it today. I want to put some kind of walls around it a little bit and talk about it in a really clear way.
Yeah, I think smart firm maybe one of the biggest of the 4 components of our SMART series, because there's just so much related to how you run your firm, from what's your mindset and how you set your firm up, what you want to be, all that stuff, to what are all the tools, connection points, needs of running your firm. I mean, it's gotten to be pretty broad, from marketing to sales to actually controlling workflow and sending out invoices and all this stuff. And
of course, all of that has a huge impact on your team and on their effectiveness, on their efficiency, on their job, the way they love their job, the work that they do every day. And so, we just keep seeing turnover. We keep seeing frustration in terms of staffing, and often we have to point back at the way the firm operates at its core.
I mean, I think team members get frustrated when, systems, processes, technologies aren't in place to take some of the friction out of their job, because they're expected to do so much. And, they are busy and there's deadlines. And when there's friction in the firm management component, like, what do we sell? Who do we want to sell it to, how do I take a lead in from our website and process it all the way through and onboard that client without any friction? All this stuff is a part of firm management. And I would say, John, as I think about the different components of a firm, this has probably been the most neglected from a innovation standpoint. We saw a ton of innovation a number of years ago in the client accounting services realm, in and around QuickBooks Online or Bill.com or Expensify. All these different companies, really took the ball and moved client accounting services forward. But what we've been dealing with is a lot of legacy practice management kind of stuff.
Why is that?
That's a great question. Why is that? So let me kind of tell you what I've seen. Going back in time, let's say 20 plus years ago, around 20 years ago, what we started seeing in the tax and accounting space was these suites evolving from Thomson Reuters to CCH to Intuit. So you start seeing these suites come together, a set of solutions that moderately talk to each other. Some called it data sharing, and so it wasn't like one database really doing its thing. It was, sort of a connected set of solutions, kind of like Microsoft Office to a degree. Back then it was like a bunch of solutions that didn't really talk to each other. But those suites kind of got all the business. Well, I feel like those vendors didn't take and move the ball forward, continue to innovate. They got comfortable and legacy technology. And so what we started seeing post, let's say, maybe 10 years ago, we started seeing what I'm going to call point solutions popping up because the big vendors, the suite vendors, were not moving things forward at the speed that
there were holes.
There was so many gaps. Because they weren't moving those things forward, what we started seeing was these point solutions, like how do you take payments? How do you get a proposal, done? How do you get an engagement letter out? And so all these point solutions started emerging. How do we communicate with clients? Stuff like that. And what we have found in the last few years is now you have, 10, 12 solutions trying to solve this problem, that a firm has in removing friction, and they don't talk to each other.
Right.
And so now we've created we go from legacy to nothing talks to each other, and there's a bunch of point solutions, and they're getting more expensive and all of that, to now we're at a point, I think, where we're seeing a small handful of solutions sort of capturing a bigger vision and pulling the functionality of these point solutions into a single solution with one database. And I think that's the future for the foreseeable future.
So you used a word in there like 6 or 8 times, and you totally forgot you're using this word because you've used it for so long now. But I think it's really important to flesh this out for listeners who don't think of this. But the word friction is really what drives this conversation. And to me, it's what causes the swing from point solutions back into suites and back and forth. It's like, now we have a new point of friction. Let's go fix that. But let's talk about that word friction, because you and I got really excited about this, 10 years ago when Jeff Bezos started talking about it.
The way I see it is when something isn't seamlessly easy.
Yeah.
Right.
When two things rub together and cause sparks.
Right.
That's what friction is.
But, if you just think about the flow of taking on a new client. So somebody saw something that you put on social media. Mm-hmm. They're like, wow, these people look amazing. I'm going to go to their website. And then there's not a form on the website, or there is a form on the website, but that form doesn't really integrate with something. So we're starting to create friction for the customer. And then if there is a form that doesn't integrate, then somebody in the firm has to be paying attention to those forms that don't integrate, and that creates friction. And then the client or the prospect wants to move forward, and you need to gather some information. So there's a bunch of friction. And then you need to onboard them, and then there's a bunch of friction.
Sparks are flying everywhere.
They're everywhere. And so the person inside the firm who's trying to get their day job done, right, just feels all this friction. And I mean, if your firm's functioning the way it should, which is growing and evolving and all this, I mean, shouldn't you be trying to solve for that?
Yeah. What Bezos said at the time that impassioned you and I so much is that he just said, I see my job as the CEO of this company as continuing to remove friction from the customer experience. So what if, as a firm owner, if you're listening to this today, you saw your job as removing friction in your firm, whether that's, and I think that's the heart of smart firm management. It's like, where is the friction for my team? Where is the friction for my customer? Where is the friction for me as an owner? And how can I bring solutions in, not just because they're new, not just because they're good ideas, but how can I reduce friction inside the firm?
We've created a picture. You and I met and talked a lot about this morning, working on this picture that lays out all the components of smart firm management. I
realize how big a geek I'm becoming because it got me really excited to start thinking about this picture.
I'm like, John's got some, I knew he had issues, but now he's got real issues. I used to be a
designer, and now I'm so excited about this picture of smart firm management.
Well, you did just want to move a few boxes around. I noticed that. Yeah. But the picture's largely around the functionality needed from a smart firm management perspective. And then when you see all the functionality and how the functionality should flow, then you should start thinking about the tools inside your firm that are solving for this, for the flows, for the functionality that's needed to run a modern firm today. And I mean, that's like, how do I get an invoice out? How do I get paid for that? How does it relieve in the right places? How does it end up in QuickBooks Online, if that's what I'm using? How does all that flow? That's Bezos sees making sure that that flows seamlessly as a part of what he does. And I believe that's incumbent upon every firm owner, is to make sure. They may not be the person doing it. Maybe they are the person doing it. In my case, that's what I love to do as I was running a firm. But somebody needs to be responsible for making sure that all that friction is removed from the chart that we're creating. And another goal that I think firms should have is how do you get down to one solution? Because ideally, less is more here.
Yeah.
The fewer solutions you have, the better, hopefully, the overall experience for your team and for your customer there is. But as it sits today, most firms that I see are trying to solve this with a document management system and a portal system and a CRM system and a payment solution. And I mean, I've just hit on 5 things or 4 things, and we haven't even talked about practice management yet, and workflow, and heaven forbid that we want to do anything with artificial intelligence and taking data and turning it into something meaningful.
Yeah.
So this is important right now, that firms really think about the evolution of the tools that help a firm function with as little friction as possible.
So one of the things you just mentioned quickly there is what we like to think of as firm intelligence. It's data. And what I've noticed is firms that are dealing with a lot of friction and often a lot of point solutions that they're trying to Frankenstein together to pull something off, data is their last priority. They don't even think about it. And it's all over the firm. It's all there.
One of the biggest assets, but one of the last things that they think about.
Yeah, I think as we think about what it means to be modern, this is the Modern Firm Podcast.
Yeah.
The idea of removing friction is obviously part of what it means to be modern. And it's a continual journey, but also this constant pursuit of leveraging the data that is already just roaming around your firm all over the place. It's got to be part of what it means to be a smart firm.
Yeah, I think firms need a strategy for collecting that data in a meaningful way. Let me give you a couple of examples. So there's certainly client data that sits in QuickBooks, which is financial data. We've sort of broken data out into at least 3 buckets. Financial data, which oftentimes comes from clients' QuickBooks or Xero file. Mm-hmm. Then you have what technologies is the client using, because you want to get as many clients into your technology stack as possible to create efficiencies. So what technologies are they using? So we would call that technology data. And then the third component is really what I think of as business data, which is like the soft stuff. It's the hardest to get to. It's like, is this business a partnership? Yeah, I mean, I can figure that out in our tax software probably. But do they have a buy-sell agreement? Well, chances are that lives in somebody's head.
It's the stuff you got to ask
about. And is that buy-sell agreement funded? I mean, those are 3 points of data that are super important. I mean, just imagine how many points of data there are across your clients. So there needs, as you think about your firm management, you have to start thinking about how do I collect those 3 kinds of data with as little friction as possible. Well, on one hand, to collect the soft stuff, you almost need the right kind of client interface. So when you onboard a customer, you start, progressively profiling, I think is the technical marketing term or something to that. But you start asking questions. Like, oh, you're a partnership. Do you have a buy-sell agreement? Is that buy-sell agreement funded? And you have a retirement plan. Is that retirement plan a 401k plan? Do you max contribute? I mean, things like that. That if we had that information, so if you fast forward to artificial intelligence, whatever that actually means today, if I had this data captured appropriately in my system, and I had the ability, I mean, think of the chat GPTs of the world. If I had the ability to say, tell me every partnership that doesn't have a buy-sell agreement or isn't funded, and send them this letter.
Inside my own client base.
Inside my client base, how much friction just got removed from somebody's job inside the firm? How much more efficient did we just become as a firm, and how much better are we serving that customer? Because the reality is most firms don't ask those questions until it's too late. And so the client never really gets holistically served. Does that make sense at all?
It makes so much sense. And this is getting a little more ethereal in the conversation, but so many of the people we work with, and the reason we love them so much is because they care so much about small business and about helping them. And they're leaving so much of this on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, holistically, this is into our smart client management conversation, but the idea of taking a customer who is desperately looking to you for wholeness financially,
yeah,
and you've got all the information. You just have to remove the friction inside of your own firm to get to a point where you can serve them. And yet, at the same time, we're bringing in new customers and we're trying to do cheap 1040s and we're doing all this stuff that's keeping us from making the money we need to holistically serve these people.
I mean, that's a part of the business model.
It is.
That you set up. So is our business model as a firm more is more, more 1040s, more, something, which is, it's feeling like it's really hard to sustain that model in today's world? Or is our model to holistically serve and our customers and less clients is more? Until we have the systems and the processes and the tools in place to grow that. Trying to grow that on the backs of our staff just working more is not a sustainable model today.
We're going to lose our teams. We're going to lose our business models. We're going to lose our clients if we don't start thinking about how to go deeper with our stuff. We talk about it all the time, Darren. How do we convince small business owners that they don't have to keep bringing in new clients all the time, that everything they need for growth is probably already existing in their client base right now. What they have to do is understand their client base better.
Yeah. It just, as we're having this conversation, John, it strikes me the majority of firms that we see are operating in some legacy more is more model with legacy technology that doesn't do what we're talking about. So as we think about a modern firm today, you, one, have to readdress your business model, but two, you have to readdress your technology and think about what are all the things that we're putting in this chart that we're creating? What are all those things? And how do I solve this with the least amount of tools possible that creates the best client and employee experience possible and puts us in a position to win as we move towards AI?
Yeah. So much of what we've talked about so far is technology based, and smart firm management is most definitely driven a lot by the technology we use. What do you say? And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, so you can say it to our audience. What do you say to somebody who says, "What I'm looking for isn't out there right now"? How do I look at what I have now and at least move the ball down the field, get closer to that one database, get closer to that less friction inside of my firm? What do I do?
Yeah, I think we are seeing a couple of vendors that are getting much closer.
Yeah.
To being able to solve more holistically from a firm management perspective. So I think we are getting there for sure, and getting there quickly.
Yeah, it's happening fast.
It's happening fast. So I think that today you've got to be paying attention, and you've got to be willing. Well, I would, before I say you got to be willing to make a shift, there's always trade-offs.
Yeah.
Right. So we may not get everything that we're looking for. So we may say that everything we're looking for is the fact that we can have a full service, holistically built practice management system that integrates tightly with our tax software. That may not be true, right? There's some things that have to happen for that to actually be true, and I don't see those things happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
So you may have to find the best of breed in practice management today that's solving more for firm management more holistically. You may have to have a slight workaround, which is creating slightly more friction.
Yep.
You may be taking away 10 pounds of friction and adding back a pound of friction because it doesn't integrate as seamlessly with your tax software as a tool that you've been using.
Yeah, we're reducing the friction, not necessarily eliminating.
We're reducing that. That's a great way of thinking about this. But so there's trade-offs in this, and I think analyzing those trade-offs, and I think that's what firms have to be doing right now.
I was hoping you would say the words "pay attention," because I think more than anything, maybe as we close this episode out, I think what keeps good firm owners from paying attention to smart firm management is just keeping their head down in their work and not creating time and space to work on the firm.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly been the case for the last several years, for sure. I don't see that getting any better. I don't think we're going to have fewer regulation changes coming out. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah.
I don't think technology is going to slow down, especially with sort of the onsurgence of AI.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think we're going to be slowing down. I don't think all of a sudden a bunch of staff people are going to magically appear at our doorstep and take all the volume away from us. So I think we have what we have.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to make this a priority, because if you can get this right and you can reduce a bunch of friction for your team and you can leverage AI going forward, I mean, can we cut out 50% of the volume that's hitting a firm today? Can we make the client experience better? Can we better holistically serve a customer? I think all three of those things can be true.
I love the conversation. I love the thought of leaving this episode with the hope that this is not a destination. The modern firm is never a destination. It's about choosing to embark on a journey to reduce the friction in your firm.
Well, John, because I talk about this all the time, but I'm spending a huge component of my time trying to help vendors and firms figure this out right now. I think this is one of the most important issues that firms need to deal with now. It does create some change in a firm, so we have to think through that. But I think right now is the time to be paying attention to better firm management solutions. And more solutions is not the answer, less solutions are.
Man, that's a great way to end it. You won't say this, so I will. If you're listening to this, go out and follow Darren on everything you can follow him on, because he's leading the industry as much as he ever has in this way. And you're going to see how in the next year or 2 years. But there's a lot of thought leadership going on from Darren. Pay attention to what Darren's saying right now. This is his passion and his expertise. And I'm glad to be along for the ride. And I hope you heard something today that gets you fired up about removing the friction from your firm and becoming a smarter firm.
Thanks,
Darren,
Sean.
good time. See you next time.